Anyway, live this Thursday night. Tonight's story, The Big Prince. When I was in kindergarten, I was in my very first play, and I got to be the Big Prince. Even though I was short, and the Little Prince was taller than I was. Never did quite figure that one out. I don't remember very much about the play, what it was about, obviously a couple of princes. But I do remember there was a scene where I handed the little prince a board that had foil on it. I think it was meant to be something he was supposed to read, like some sort of plaque. And it had foil on the one side, and in my eyes, he needed to be looking at the foil because that's what in my mind was what he was supposed to be reading. But when I gave it to him, he flipped it over and was reading the non-foil side. Now, when I think about it, I wonder if maybe he wanted the foil side to be seen by the audience. This is actually the first time I thought that might possibly be what it was. But in my mind, he was doing it wrong. And so I handed it to him. He flipped it over. Then I grabbed it and I flipped it over again. And then he flipped it over. And then I flipped it over. And then he flipped it over. And then I just got mad. And I went off stage and went into the little side room where people put on their costumes and stuff. And I just disappeared in the middle of the play. I don't know if I had more lines. I don't know if I was done. I was just done. I was embarrassed. I was crying. And I was angry because he wasn't doing it right. In my eyes, he wasn't doing it right. Now, at 5 years old, I guess you could excuse that kind of behavior. But that was kind of my personality. It's still sometimes my personality. When things aren't going right, sometimes I just walk away. I don't usually go off crying in some side room, but I will walk away from certain things. If we go back a year to last year's contest at the division level, when there were issues with how I was being introduced, and then how I let that affect me in the way that I started my speech, and then just decided, forget it, I'm not going to give my speech because I've already screwed it up. I was so frustrated. I think that's the first time I've gotten to that level of frustration in a performance since kindergarten. I think those two events are somehow linked, that I went back to that in my mind. And there are probably other things in life, things that maybe have happened at work or things in relationships I've had that they just didn't go well, and so I just walked away. Either walked away from the relationship or walked away from the situation to come back to it in the relationship. It's interesting how something from so long ago can be indicative of who we are and how we act, the responses that we have even 48 years later. So it may be important for us not just to go back and look at our stories of life so that we can share them with other people, but so that we can learn from them ourselves. Maybe take a strong look and think, am I still that way? Should I still be that way, or should I be beyond that? What is informing my decisions? Is there something you're still doing that maybe you did as a child? Some way you looked at life or situations that maybe was fine when you were 5, but you could do better now? Or does it at least explain why you have certain visceral reactions to certain situations? Just some food for thought. Today's storytelling aspect of Speak Anyway Live. We'll see you tomorrow.